last year I talked a little bit about this presentation and did some with some of you, and I see your familiar faces, and I'm so glad you came back again. And this is why I actually added Brad. So Brad has just extensively, he's worked with District 49, you've worked with the BOCES, which is actually an online school. He is how many school districts do you work with the?
About 65.
About 65.
Mostly charter schools.
Yeah, throughout the state of Colorado. So he has really worked with a lot of the educational freedom choices that we have here in Colorado, and has done a lot of work in that area. So I wanted to bring him because he's truly the expert and understands a lot more nuances of how the law works. So the presentation we have, I'm going to go through it, but I want this to be more of a discussion. If you guys just sit there and stare at me, then I will go through my lovely presentation slide by slide by slide. Or, as I told Brad, it's going to be the Angela Brad show, because we really want to answer your questions. And he'll probably have more of the technical information, and I will talk a little bit more about what is coming up in other states and what we have. Because I'm going to just totally... how many people raise your hands? How many of you will go to the end of the book and read the last few pages? Magazine. I don't know why. The magazines are always more interesting backwards.
All right.
See, I don't know why. I do it backwards. So I'm going to tell you something. A lot of the things that I'm going to talk about that we have as educational options in the state of Colorado, people who saw this presentation before, you can't say, what percentage of those options do you think we have here in Colorado? Right here, you move so you get to answer. What's the percentage of educational opportunities that I might talk about here tonight actually occur in Colorado?
Percentage, I don't know, 75 to 80.
75-80% of the occupational educational choices we have available statewide, United States, we have in Colorado. Does anyone else want to give a percentage out? Just shout it out. 100%. 35%. I love your optimism, because you know what? I'm going to tell you right here in the state of Colorado the three options that I'm going to be talking about with educational opportunity that is really making a trend and a change in the United States for education. We have a big fat 0. Zero. That doesn't mean we can't do things. It doesn't mean we can't work with things, because we have people like Brad who help us work with what we have. What's even more important is we have people like you in this room to even understand what the possible chances are to have the opportunities we can put out there. And your voices are what will bring it to the state of Colorado. Okay? So that's why we're here tonight. Brad, do you want to say a few words?
Sure.
Okay. Because I could be a mic hog really easy.
Thanks for having me. So I'm actually here to totally wing it, and so I am hopeful too that we have some questions. I'm a lawyer. I work with almost exclusively charter and online and homeschool enrichment programs, some private schools. I also work with Falcon School District right here on the east side. And by the way, afterwards, if you've got questions about your kid's IEP or 504 or whatever, I'm glad to help, but just keep in mind that your school might be a client of mine, so I'll have to be a little careful with that. So I do a lot of work in the legislature or with the legislature in Colorado, and what she's referring to has to do with some things like educational ESAs, the voucher type of fundings that are occurring in Arizona and so forth, and that's why she gave you the big 0. We do have a lot going on, and I'll just ask this question. In the first 20 years of the U.S. Congress, how many new laws do you think the U.S. Congress passed in its first 20 years? I looked this up on Wikipedia, so I know I'm right. 53 in 20 years. How many laws do you think our state legislature passed in the area of education law last spring? 55. Our legislature is going helter-skelter into a direction of regulation, helter-skelter into a very, I'll call it bureaucracy, but school district-focused interests as opposed to parent interests. And I'm sure a lot of you saw the hubbub around HB 1032, which is a comprehensive human sexuality bill. And there was a bill that had to do with what needs to be taught in civics classes that you didn't hear as much about. And there's a law about how you can't discipline kids under 2nd grade with a suspension. And there's laws about just everything. It's just remarkable. And so one of the things that I hope that we come out of here with is a sense of empowerment. If we can, I'd love to give you tools about how we can talk to our legislatures, connect you with our legislators. The El Paso County set of state reps and state senators is really a profoundly strong group in terms of our legislature, and we ought to be engaged with them in some new ways. So I hope I bought you time to say what you need to say, but thanks for having me here.
No. I love it, and that's why I wanted to bring him, because he knows all those numbers. I know 0. That literally, that's what I know, is that there's a 0 here. But we want to talk. That's why I want to keep it a little bit more conversational, because we are sort of hybriding this. But I had in front of you guys some little pieces of Post-it notes, because I was going to let you guys write things down and throw them at me. But gee, I forgot the pens. So maybe throwing things at me is not going to actually work tonight. I'm so sorry, guys. I know you want to throw. Oh, she has a pen. She'll share it with all of you. You know what? And what I'm going to do is on that, if you guys have some pens, I'm going to give you a second question. You can throw that one at me, but the first question, I'm just going to ask for people just to pop up with some thoughts. The second question you can write on the Post-it note, and then you guys get to throw it to me. I'm sure the kids in the room will love, and I'm a moving target, although I do know that I'm going to be a little bit more up here because of the technical terms. So when you see me move all around, you can say, stop, you're making me sick, please hold on. But anyway, in a perfect world, what would you like to see change in Colorado in reference to educational freedom? Okay, or educational options. Just jot something down on there. We're not quite to that point yet, but actually just think about it. You can put a thing in it. At some point, I'll let you guys all just pepper me with little snowballs of Post-it notes. But what I want to ask you right now is, what does educational freedom mean to you? And please raise your hands, because I really hate having to make up answers or call on people, because they get really mad at me. And when I talk about educational freedom, people a lot of times say, you mean choice? Well, yeah, I want you to have a choice. But in educational freedom, we are absolutely advocates for educational freedom. At AFP and many things you see going across the United States, I believe you as parents, as siblings, as grandparents, as family members, you know what is the best way to educate your child. You know what is the best system. You also know what you want to make sure you instill in your child. Some of the laws that Brad was talking about, they're saying these are the things we believe we want to instill in your child. So at AFP, we sort of have a saying. We believe you should be able, the person, to pick out the educational freedom that you like for your child, to get them the education they need and to be more successful. And educational freedom, people a lot of times say, oh, you mean you don't like public schools? I'm going to tell you, both my kids went to public school. It was an excellent choice for them. But one of the things that we want to talk about educational freedom, it's just what Brad talked about. He talked about, charter schools, choice schools, private schools, I think I talked about online schools. You got BOCES. I don't know why he says he doesn't do them all, because I think you do them all. Online schools, trade schools, service schools, whatever it is you need, GEDs, I don't care. If it's a way to get your child to get that degree so that they can go on and continue to be successful. People say, why does AFP care about this so much? That's it. If every person is able to come out with an education so they can continue to have their school, to have their lives, to make their choices, to be productive, good society people, what happens to America? It's even better. It's kids that can think for themselves, can figure things out. They can be happy. And that doesn't mean they all have to go to college. It doesn't mean they all have to do this or that. It's what is their opportunity. What is their dream? What is their passion? If people are doing their passion, my Uncle Sub says all the time, if you actually love what you're doing, you never spend one day of your life working because you love it. It's your passion. And if we can ignite that in our family members and our kids, there's no end to what can continue to happen. And let me tell you, I have a 25-year-old and a 22-year-old, and I don't care from the age 2 to the 25-year-old. When they're not happy, we parents aren't happy. When they're struggling, it's hard. My daughter had this big breakup with her 3-year-old boyfriend. 3-year-old. That's a problem. That might be a problem. Her boyfriend of 3 years is what I meant to say. It broke my heart. And I like the kid. He's a good kid. But you know what I do? I show up with a pint of ice cream. That's what we parents do. We're there with our kids' struggles. We want to make sure they can do it. Exactly, that's right. So with that, can someone now tell me, what does educational freedom mean to you? I know you got an answer, because I remember you from last time, so I'm going to let you cheat a little.
I don't want to.
You don't have to say it in the microphone. How about that? You can just say it and I'll say, yeah, it's good, even if it's the worst answer ever.
Freedom to educate our children about religion.
Freedom to educate our children about religion. Absolutely. Because you as a family want that instilled in your kids, and you want them to be able to have that and not to be afraid of, oh my gosh, can I say that? Can I do that? Can we have every other club? This might be a case for you that I'm bringing up, Brad, so tell me if you can't say anything. But, you know, I know we don't talk about schools. But I know there was a school in the city, because I got in trouble last time because I said a school, that had an issue with a Christian club. But you can have every other club, if that's something that you want. What do you think changed that? The parents speaking up, the kids speaking up. Absolutely. Oh, where's the hand back here? Wow, that's a great answer, and it was really long. So it's, and I don't think I can get to you. I think they kept me on, they literally kept me on a short leash this time. But actually it was the ability to look at her child, make sure I paraphrase this pretty quickly, and ability to make sure that they get educated with what they need. Look at them as an individual, that's what I like. Look at them as an individual, not as a whole group, and well, this works for this, so it must work for you. This works for this, so it must work for you. And it doesn't matter where your kid is. They're all individual, and they're all unique, and they're all have strong passions. And I believe firmly if their competence is actually, self-confidence is kept up, and if their ability to strive for what they want, even if it's something you don't want. Think about the people. Every one of you could probably sit back, and I remember my boyfriend was not 3 years old, but in high school, when I was in high school, I had a boyfriend, and this is going to put my age out there, but Brad, you're close to my age, so you'll get it. He had a computer. It was one of those black computers, and it was about this big, and it basically played Pong, boom, 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 did some math. And we were all like, Jay, you're so weird. Why are you playing on this computer thing? Guess what his passion and what he's doing now today? Developing software, computers, and doing extremely well. And we all are like,
Can I respond to that?
yeah.
Just wanted to grab the mic for a little bit. So when I was in high school, we didn't have computers, so I'm a little bit older, I think. So I love the two questions, or the two issues. I think they're really vital. When I referred to 1032, which is a comprehensive human sexuality bill that came through our legislature this past year, and it was intended to be mandatory in terms of the content. We can all debate whether it was worthy or not, but it was going to insist that every school district and every charter school and every school that provided in a public setting any sort of sex ed was going to have to be compelled to provide this curriculum. And it was a one-size-fits-all mandate coming down from the state. And to me, so what happened was 1,015 people at one count showed up to the Senate Health or Senate Education Committee hearing on this, and 500 people testified until about 1:30 in the morning. And the one thing that was accomplished by that is it did not become a mandate. Parents can still opt out if they're in a public school. And that was, they turned that corner. It was very effective. One of the things I want to make sure that we think about, we're all voters here, or most of us over 5 feet tall are voters here, and right now is a really critical season. It's school board election season. Candidates are turning in their petitions by August 30th, and we'll soon know who's running in D11 or D49 or D38 or wherever you might be a resident. And I don't care if you're a homeschool parent. I don't care if you're a private school parent. This really matters because local politics is the most important politics. Pay attention to who the candidates are from your lens and your perspective, because they are such a profound, school districts are the biggest lobbying influence in school law in the state. They hire lobbyists that are super high-powered and are very effective. And so the candidates that we get for our local school board are going to tell us down the road, are we able to have a Christian club in a school? Are we able to have a dyslexia-focused school in D49, which we do and is awesome? And so pay attention to that. I think it's really super important.
Yeah. No, I'll absolutely say that. Try to get as much information as you can. A lot of people sort of forget, and sometimes it's tough to find the different information. But just even asking the people, they usually tend to be just parents like you yourself. So they usually don't have the big fancy information and website. But if they're running for a school board and that's the neighborhood you live in, just ask your neighbors. They will know where to find information. So anyway, we have why educational options. It's about children, not schools. And I guarantee you, when those little signs pop up when the election gets a little closer in November, and Jill and I have a favorite person, every time she ran, she always put, "It's about the kids." Yeah, I loved your face. You guys didn't get to see her, but you're
I've heard that so many times.
It's about the kids. It's about the kids.
Was it about the kids?
But was it about the kids? And that's what we're talking about educational freedom allows. It's really about the kids. Because we get it. There's infrastructure, there's schools, there's, teachers, salaries, benefits. There's a whole business behind it. Brad works in that business a lot. I know I'm going to trip over this at some point. And Brad, you can just grab this anytime you want. It really is about the kids. And that's where we really have to put the focus. And those are the questions if you actually get to go. A lot of times your local school districts will also hold panels where they'll have all the people up there to do it. I highly encourage you to show up to those. They almost always, don't they almost always put them in the envelopes that you get home. They usually pretty well advertise it.
So I realize we're pontificating, and I'm sorry about that. I didn't come with a prepared presentation, and I see this room full of people, and it's rare to have a room full of people that everybody's giving you eye contact, and so that's healthy. I know you guys care. So I'm a fount of wisdom, genuinely, when it comes to legislative affairs in the state, local school stuff, advocacy. I would love to be able to engage with you on the things that you care about and the questions that you have. And so I'm just interrupting this message to say, do you have questions? What are the things that you think are important? What should we be talking about? What can I answer for you?
My biggest question is why we're not teaching our children some of these life necessities, like thinking about how to do taxes and how learning about politics, what politics really means instead of taking a politics class, or learning about finances and things like that. Why are we not teaching these things to our kids in schools that are so necessary as adults, but we kind of have to figure it out in time? I mean, they learn math, they learn, all these other general educational things, but these are life necessities. Why are we not doing that?
That's a great question. And if everybody couldn't hear, it was like, why don't we teach the fundamentals, right? The important things that matter and help us have life skills and be effective citizens. And so one way I'll answer that is our core knowledge classical academies in town, and there's several of them, from the Classical Academy to Monument Academy to the Vanguard School to James Irwin to, there's a bunch of them, Rocky Mountain Classical, Thomas McLaren. There's a ton of those type of schools here in town, and they do focus on that. There's an economics professor at the Vanguard School. The Classical Academy teaches what's the Christian finance guy, Dave Ramsey. Yeah, they teach a Dave Ramsey class. So there are schools that do that. On the other side of the coin, if you can influence who gets elected to these school boards, and I hate to be so crass, but there are a class of people that run for school board who are endorsed by the local EA, Education Association, and who are more responsive in their politics to their interests than they are to parents' interests. And then there's the people who aren't, who are people like us in a room who just think, man, I want better education. And I'm not trying to be ideological about it, but if you can find those free agents, the people that are there for, let's get this better, they're going to be able to advocate for that sort of course load, because the school board gets to dictate the curriculum. They get to vote on what books are used, and so whereas the classical academy doesn't teach to the test, they still get better SAT scores. The Liberty Common got the highest SAT scores in the state 2 years in a row. They're one of these classical academies out of Fort Collins. They do a good job with it. We should be encouraging our schools, the rest of our schools, to do that. Josh.
So one thing, guys, little shameless plug here, but to that question, AFP, our Americans for Prosperity Foundation, we actually run an Adulting 101 class for kids, and we're actually running a finance course right now, how to do a simple budget, how to invest your money, what is it going to mean to buy a car, a house, we're going to do how to fix your tire, what does health insurance look like, so all these things, if that's something that you need in your training, let me know, we'll bring it to you, and you guys can come back. So, shameless plug, we'll watch it.
But it's a great plug because, sometimes you got to find different, as a parent, sometimes you got to find different avenues. And just so you know, we do not charge for our classes that do that as well. So reach out to Jill and Josh at any time and they will bring it to you. Yes?
I want to also add, Discovery Candy also teaches not only the pregnancy program, but they also go as far as all the things that Joshua just had said. My daughter did a lot of Discovery Candy news, even about what kind of car she wanted to buy, the Saturn, the Subaru, and the most economical this, and talk about the life insurance and all of these things.
So District 20 does a great job of giving some local control to buildings to do what they do, and that's really admirable. Falcon School District, who I represent, and by the way, I'm not with AFP, I'm just a friend, but Falcon School District D49, we actually have total local control. We give every single school leader the ability, autonomy to decide which direction they're going, then how much to spend on teachers' aides versus librarians versus whatever. And so again, if we can get through to school districts through their leadership, there are effective ways that we can advocate. There was a question there, yeah? So here's a little known secret, but those of you who are enrolled in a private school can also avail yourself of the part-time homeschool enrichment or part-time programming that districts use. And so District 49 has Aero Lab, for example. It's a flight school program for homeschoolers, and it's state funded. You don't become obligated to go through CMAS and all the things. You get to retain your autonomy as a parent, as the administrative unit for your kid. You're still in charge of their education, but you can do that. D49 actually has a backpack funded process, which we have kids at Banning Lewis Ranch Prep who take online courses through Khan Academy. They take an AP course over there at Vista Ridge High School, and the money follows them to each of those. So they get 1/7 for Vista Ridge, 5/7 for Banning, and 1/7 for Khan, and it gets distributed that way. So again, if we can affect our school district leadership, these things are very legal. It's just that not many districts choose to do it.
How do you get a school district to honor getting a child in IEP? Most school districts do not like to do it unless the child attends that school district.
So the question is about IEPs and how we get a district to honor an IEP.
But they have to go through the testing.
So there's always an assessment process. She's asking they have to go through testing. Yes, there's an assessment process. If you live outside of a district and you want to choice into the district, it's really difficult when you have a child with an IEP. District 20 will say no in most instances to kids out in D11 or D49 wanting to choice in.
That live in the district
If you live-
go to a private school.
Oh, if you live in the district and go to a private school, the district is not going to support an IEP if you've chosen to go to a private school. You're going to have to work that through the school. So if you go to CSCS or whatever, or St. Mary's or something, then you're going to have to work it through with them, because the district is not technically, you're technically in their view a homeschooler, effectively. You're not a district enrolled
And
student.
there's no statute that upholds.
There's no statute that would require that of a private school or the district. Sorry.
Go on, keep going.
If you're not the person who asked, let me know. A couple years ago, when they put in the ballot to have recreation, medical marijuana, one of the selling points and one of the strongest points was that the money was going to go some of it was going to go to schools. So why do we keep getting in the envelopes that we get for voting? Increased taxes for the school, increased taxes for district, increased
Can I
taxes.
take that, or you want to take that?
Where are those millions of dollars?
I think Angela is grabbing at this mic from me. I have an answer, but I'll let her start here.
Yeah, we'll come back to that. Why do they say that? Because it works. And there is. Oh, I'm sorry. Why do he was asking about when you get your voter registration? You've heard over and over again about let's increase taxes, or let's put this bond, or let's do this or that or the other thing in order to help the schools. And where is the money? Is what you're where's the money? Is what you're basically asking, correct?
My question is, where's the money from the marijuana business?
Oh, marijuana. Okay, I can, yeah, okay, and the marijuana. And then he also actually asked where the marijuana money. We may have heard, to legalize marijuana, we just heard there was $1 billion of taxes increased. Where is the money for that going to the schools? Well, how I'm going to answer your first question, and your second question is exactly the same way. Look at the fine print. Look at the fine print. In this, it actually stated, and you probably know exactly what it stated, I guarantee it, but basically it was a fine print of the schools went to build new schools. There's a little bit of a nuance in that ballot language. How many of you had a new school built in your area? Okay? That money went to those. How many live in an area who might be selling schools like some districts are? So it can't be for a heater system if a school actually needs a heater system. It actually has to be for a new school. Then they also have a lot of, I know when I went to Academy, I went to a school in the district, my kids went to grade school. I know I get in trouble for saying exact schools. We did a fundraiser with the PTO. The school was actually building on an art building, and we were actually fundraising for the chairs and the tables in there, because we as parents weren't allowed to donate anything that would go. So if they could take all their money and allocate it to actually building the building, and we as PTO could fundraise and bring it in there. So there's a lot of rules and regulations where the money actually goes, but for marijuana, the big part was that. Go for it.
Plus, our state legislature is just brilliant at hiding and putting things into funds that don't go where they're supposed to. And it really didn't prove out. The marijuana didn't. That said, our schools are more than adequately funded. And so I'd love for us to be more skeptical on mill levies and so forth. And one of the things that a couple of the Parents Challenge are advocating, and I think is really brilliant, is next time District 11 asks for a mill levy override, which is ongoing money year after year to fund something like teacher salaries or what have you, we should ask them to say, why not tie that to accountability, and you only get funded if your grades are going up and your scores are going up. I mean, why not put some accountability into these measures? So that's one of the things I'm really working on, coming around the horn to see how that goes. Yes, ma'am. Yeah. So it's true that special education funding, the ESSA money and so forth, is not quite adequate to cover all the costs of someone who needs a center-based program, for example. D11 has specifically gone away from any center-based programs, which is why they've disrupted some kids' lives from where they used to be. And so they don't have, let's say, an autism center or what have you, the way they used to. They're trying to make, in my view, they're trying to make the case to the public that, oh, we don't have enough money and so we need more money, or in fact what they're doing is harming kids, and it's disappointing. For what it's worth, there's advocates who are quasi-lawyers who are very good at attending IEP meetings and advocating and supporting. I hate it when I'm up against them if I'm representing the school, because they're very effective. And so that might be a tool for you to consider.
What is it called?
They're advocates. There's people that kind of advertise and they might have a law degree, or they might even be a lawyer, and then they go in and help you as your sort of your consultant going into an IEP meeting and help you get the best sort of outcomes you can.
Straight in the very back.
That's one of them.
And definitely collaborating, just like in this, bringing parents together in this kind of group, talking and really thinking about these different things is very good. Because we're all out there trying to find the answer and trying to search the answer out. And some of us have maybe gotten a piece or a secret, and that's why we wanted to come and talk to you. And that's particularly why I wanted to bring Brad, because as you can see, I would not know any of those questions, most of them that he answered. Yes?
Just piggybacking off of what they said, if you are in the process of getting an IEP, could you talk to like one of the advocates? I don't necessarily need them to go to a IEP meeting with me yet, but I kind of just need somebody to go through like what are some of the things, because I feel like the school's kind of like, well, what do you want to see done? Because we're at a private school, and so sometimes the public schools are a little more versed in IEPs, or maybe have a little more resources with that. So we're in a private school, which is amazing. But I feel like I just need some support to be like, okay, what do I need to be asking? Like, what are the right questions to make sure I get them the right tools for the help that they need?
No, that's a great question. So, what can I do to get resources in advance of an IEP meeting, and how to understand what my rights and the things I should ask for would be. I don't really personally have, ARC is one I've heard of. I've run into several of them. I'm not in the market myself, so I don't know. And I will just reiterate that for a private school, their obligations are very different than those of the public schools in terms of supporting that. But the other thing I would say is, I know there's dyslexia support groups, there's autism support groups, there's groups of mommies and daddies that gather together and typically have a Facebook page and some supports, and I would look there too. Yeah.
I've experienced my daughter in the charter school, and I try to get my son to go there, but he said his IEP is too extensive. So are all charter schools like that they only have a limited IEP base that they serve, or
So,
this particular school?
so she asked if charter schools can exclude, or what's the process if there's a kid with more significant needs. That triggers something I want to make sure I said to everybody here. If you got a pre-kindy, a 3-year-old, a 2-year-old, somebody that you hope to get into charter school, a lot of these schools have wait lists, and you can sign up at birth. And sometimes it's worth doing that just to get on the list, to have the opportunity for that choice in addition to whatever else might be there for you. So charter schools cannot unilaterally say no to any kid. However, their relationship with their authorizer, now there's a lot of schools in our area that are authorized by the Charter School Institute, which is a statewide authorizer. So most of the schools that are charters in D11, for example, don't use D11 as their authorizer, they use the state authorizer. But let's say it's James Irwin Charter Schools down here on the south end, and they're with D2, Harrison District. They would, in conjunction with Harrison, determine whether the best, least restrictive environment for that child can be the charter school. Can that child be served, whatever the need might be? And if the district and the school and the parent together agree that that can't be the case, because maybe they don't have a full-time, whatever, person, then the decision would be made as a group to put them in the public school. But it's not as though the charter school can just say no. It has to be that team setting. And if you're not getting that, talk to the folks at ARC, And I didn't mean to call out James Irwin as a good guy or bad guy or anything like that. I just was using an example. Yeah. Okay.
All right. Excellent. And you know, again, he'll be here a little bit later and maybe can help give you a little bit more direction on some of those. I want to get back to the educational choices. We are talking about public schools, charter schools, magnet schools, homeschooling, technical schools, and online schools. And I read that list off because, let me tell you, I can't remember them all. I think most of you guys are very familiar with charter schools, not to mention public schools. That we are not one area. Magnet schools, you know, you guys involved in any magnet schools where like it's a school that really focuses on art or it might focus on science? Those kinds of, these are all educational choices, and these we do obviously have in Colorado. I don't know why they're having so many. Okay. They're telling the same thing over and over again. I'm going to have to jump down a little bit. But what I really wanted to talk to you about was some of the options that we have that are coming up there. And one of them is what, has anyone ever heard the technology of ESA? ESAs, they actually do them in Arizona quite a lot. This is going through charter schools. You guys are familiar with them. I don't need to go through all this, right? You guys are familiar. I mean, if you want me to, I will. I'm just going to keep going. They got a lot of magnet schools. I think you guys are all familiar. Technical schools, we have those options. Actually, I'm very excited. A lot of the high schools are actually starting to bring in the technical trade schools back. They're bringing them in, you know, where you can actually learn how to work on a car, where you can do the hair services, those kinds of things and options of going for it. Those to me are hugely important because I know I'm going to need a lot more haircuts than I'm ever going to need any kind of houses designed. We want to make sure we have those voices, and luckily we're hearing, wasn't it? Oh gosh. One of the schools was actually really talking, I think actually it was in Durango, Colorado. They had not had it, they completely done away with their program, and they're actually bringing it back in a strong force. So they're getting a lot of attention. So even apprenticeships, oriented in-school programs, non-college bound students, college, these are all what we consider actual choices. I do not like this new program they gave me. I gotta be honest, I got way too many slides. These are all the options that we have, but one of the things that we can actually have for kids, I'm going to have to keep going through my things. Talk about ESAs a little bit. We have actually ESAs, they're educational savings accounts, where you can take your amount of money and you can actually have that money and those dollars and actually put them in the bucket and use them the way you want to. Whether you go to a private school or a public school, right now what happens to your money? When you pay your taxes, does it come back to you if you homeschool and don't go to the school? Goes to the district. And I understand having districts and having them strong, but when you have schools compete, a lot of times the public schools will say, this is going to actually hurt us if we have to have money taken away, and the homeschool parents get to use the money for their funds or going to a vacation or doing whatever they need to do. But the fact of the matter is, it's shown publicly over and over again how the fact that competition actually works. When kids in schools actually, parents go going, I want this. What was the class you wanted out there? I mean, we heard one of them, one of the classes you wanted to have. Well, a finance class. Well, if they all go over to school X because they're having a finance, maybe school Y is going to start to have a finance class. Or if you have a homemaking class, or they have technical trades class. So actually when educational opportunity and when what we're talking about with the freedom, it actually helps increase a lot of the public school. It just changes the thinking. Because when your money gets to follow you when your kid, like you're doing in D49, if he's going into homeschool, going to do this, the money actually follows, guess what? They're going to actually have one of those opportunities. So one of the issues that we have with the money following is ESA, educational savings accounts. They have this in Arizona, any other states?
I'm not sure.
Okay. I like that, I'm not sure. I know they have it in Arizona, and so what you can do is take your own money and put it where you want to put it year after year. Okay? How many of you would like to have that ability? That would be a nice thing to do. You said you were going to a private school, it could help pay for that tuition. They've done it in a limited area with a limited sort of scope in Arizona, and it's shown that it's really helped kids get through their high school, actually do what they need to do. I'm sorry, I'm going to choke here. And it's actually raised competition. And guess also what it does? It puts you in charge of the dollars, which means you have a louder voice. You get to decide what is best for your kids. They don't have to go down to the school street. That is one of the opportunities that we were talking about that are not currently in the state of Colorado. They are in other states, and you as parents can actually say, hey, I want to start having these kinds of things. I want to make sure that, you know, my dollars are going to where they want to go.
So the CSA thing's actually brilliant. I love the idea, and AFP's been a big advocate of it. However, we're not going to get there. Realistically, Democrat state House, Democrat state Senate, Democrat governor, there's an alignment, and anytime it's all aligned on one side or the other, there's going to be things that just can or can't happen based on that. In the case of this particular alignment, ESAs, or anything that sounds like a voucher, is not going to be favored. And so we need to work incrementally. We need to be thinking about who are the legislators we care to elect in a couple of years, next, you know, a year from now, that sort of thing. And the way we can do that, 200 of us can vote, and that's great. But if 200 of us are out in our communities lauding the fact or celebrating the fact that we have the opportunity to choose a charter school or to go to a private school and a part-time Aero Lab, you know, that's funded, or we get a choice within our district to go to another school, and we talk about how choice is so wonderful, that changes the language, I think, very significantly.
It does. They actually get to hear your voice. So a couple of the funding options is open enrollment. How many of you have gone through open enrollment? Usually that is when, in Colorado, we actually have school choice. So you're actually able to choice in out of district. So if you had a school that you wanted to go to, hold on, I'll get right to you. If you wanted to go to, you go through an open enrollment program. Every school district has a different open enrollment program. If it's something you're interested in, make sure you go to that school district and find out exactly when the dates. They're very strict dates, usually come up in February. Yes?
So we do actually locally document the homeschool academy.
Uh-huh.
Our integration program, they give you $200 to order supplies.
That's nice. So see, that's like a hybrid. Parents' challenge right here is sort of like the next thing that we're going to talk is tax credit scholarships, where private and public companies can go in and say, hey, I want to donate so that these kids could go to this scholarship or go to this school or do this kind of thing. This is all actually done. They get a tax credit off of it. They can donate. Parents' choice is sort of that kind of situation, except for they're not able to get a tax write-off for it. So if we went and had our state legislators and said, you know what, this is something important, we want to see more private schools. There's been actually some private businesses, for example, there was one where a student actually was very autistic, but what worked for him was working with horses. And I'm going to be honest, you know, D20 can't just come up and have a stable of horses all of a sudden just for one kid. That's just not feasible. But if you had this tax credit scholarship ability, maybe there was a company that was actually involved with horses out in Arizona, which makes sense. It's Arizona; they got a lot of horses. They were actually able to have those classes for him and then take a tax write-off for it. So that is an educational opportunity that are in other states, but not in Colorado. So we got one. We got open enrollment, which is great. But we don't have the ability to actually have tax credit scholarships or educational savings account, or what they're often called as vouchers. Literally, when you say the word vouchers, people bristle. I'm telling you, that is a word people do not like to hear, and that's why we're changing educational savings accounts. A lot of times it's a linguistics thing. So you want to look at those kinds of thoughts. That was the educational savings account. Open enrollment, make sure you're aware of those. What other traditional public schools in the district, other than neighborhood, what are some other things you would like to see for your child to have? What, as a homeschool, can one of the homeschool families talk to me and say, this would really help me to educate my kid? I know you guys are a talkative group. Yes, in the back.
IEP services for homeschool kids.
IEP services for homeschool kids. Do you have any thoughts on that one that we could have choices?
No.
I homeschool because he's the school, even when he's
Yeah.
in public school, wasn't meeting.
So, are we done at 7?
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay.
I'm just wondering.
I don't want to drag us out too long. So you may see by my resume I'm a churchgoer. I've worked with evangelizing what I believe in my life with friends for a long, long time, and I can't express well enough, and I know I'm not doing a good job of this. If you could at Starbucks, if you could at drop off to daycare, if you could at pick up from karate class, express your support for the sorts of choices that Colorado already has, and your interest in more choices and more parent-associated things, it can change the dialogue. And we've really got a challenge in Colorado. Magellan's done a poll that says more people than not disapprove of the idea of charter schools in Colorado. So we haven't done a great job of advocating for what choice ought to be. And I look at you guys, and I know that you've had some benefits from this program. I would love to have you talking to friends and share this, evangelize.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of it that comes through, and we're just going to come back, and if you have more questions, we're absolutely happy to help you with those and try to see how we can answer them for you. But when we have choice, we've got to really make sure we can talk to the hearts and minds and tell stories. For example, my oldest daughter, and I think I told the story last time, my oldest daughter, we were in preschool, and all the kids were, doing really well with reading. We were doing the Hooked on Phonics thing. She got the letters, she got the sounds, but she was struggling, and it was really tough for her. And I kept going, I don't understand. It was my first kid. I didn't really know. I just thought, you went to school, it'd all work out. And she had an excellent preschool teacher, and the preschool teacher came up and said, she's a little late, baby. Maybe she just needs the gift of time. Let's hold her back. So I went to the district, that was my local district, and I said, okay, I think I'm going to hold off on that kindergarten thing and wait. And they told me, no, you can't do that. No. You've got to put her into kindergarten. If she doesn't do well, she can flunk, and we'll hold her back, and then we'll talk to you. Well, I already knew there was something going on. I was the parent. I was seeing it. And I'm like, she's 5. She's inquisitive. She's bright. Why would I do that to her? Why would I let her flunk and then all of her other friends go up that she's made? And I was really perplexed. I'll be honest. I was just like, no, I don't want to do that. And so that's actually when I started to go the private school route, because I actually started employing myself, and I found that my daughter was dyslexic. We did not have something like what your school, what they have at the dyslexic school. They did not have that. And as a matter of fact, I went through, got her tested, figured out, went up to Denver, had her a lot of tutoring, and they did tell me what we're doing today is what the schools are going to be doing in 10 years. And they were not lying. I was amazed. They were 10 years behind what I needed from my child to go forward. So that was where I became very involved in choice and educational freedom. And that's why it's very near and dear to my heart. Because that child now is 25 years old. She is an accountant. She bought her first condo up in Denver in Highlands Ranch. She is very successful, has her confidence, a little bit too much confidence sometimes, but it is completely intact because we were able to do what we needed to do. So we started in private, and then we had some issues there, and we ended up going to public. And I actually had the opposite of the IEP because I didn't want her identified in that area. We were already taking care of it, and by the time we'd gotten into public school, and I had a very difficult time saying, no, leave her alone, I'll take care of it. But I was the parent. I had the right to say that. And that's what educational freedom is about, is that you make the choices for your kid to get them educated so that they can grow up into a productive society, so they can go and contribute. Trust me, she's paying taxes. I got to hear it all last year because she helped me with my taxes, which is nice, but she also grumbled about her taxes. Why am I paying this? Why am I never going to get? Whoop! Just do it and just be happy where you are. But that's the things we need to do, and I think that's what we want to do is lift up your voices. Lift up your voices in educational freedom. Find out what other states, they have these ESAs. They have these tax credits. They have, make sure that they have more of a voucher, a choice system. Make sure when we're talking, when someone comes up and says, you know what, I've had people come up to me and they'll go, charter schools, well, they only succeed because they can pick and choose the kids they want. They cannot in the state of Colorado. Oh, charter schools, you got to pay for those. That's a tuition-based school. No, it is a public school, paid with public school dollars. You have the right to go into that. Really educate yourself on some of the facts. Understand what you're talking about. And the biggest thing that I've ever seen with people when they come up, schools hurt, if we have all this online school, if we allow this private schools, if we allow all this kind of stuff, and you take your tax dollars, you're going to hurt our public schools and our education is going to end. No, not if you're competitive. Not if you give me the services I want. What was it you over here with talking about, you want to make sure your kids had religious ed. Why can't they have religious ed classes? Why can't they? I'm getting ready to head back to DC. One of my favorite things to do was to go look at the monuments, and I walk around and I read all the sayings, and I'm not quite sure we're really deciphering the separation of church and state as the forefathers really wanted.
Lawyers, I tell you.
Those darn lawyers, yeah. Throw all the snowballs at him. We didn't get to our question. You can just throw the snowballs and paper at him. But no, it really is. It's looking at this and having your voice. And like what Brad said, go talk to your neighbors. Go to your school districts and look at who's running for the school board. Attend your school board meetings. And I'm going to tell you, Jill, where are you? I know she's somewhere. There she is. Jill and I sort of met going to a school board meeting, and we went with multiple groups. We had a large group with an issues going on. And we knew that we went up and we spoke, and we were friends with a lot of these people. We knew them. We were neighbors. And we would say our thing, and they'd be like, there goes Jill and Angela again. And we said what we needed to say to make sure our kids got the education they needed. And I know there's times I felt like I was absolutely bounding my head against the wall. And in the case, we actually ended up taking our kids out of that school because it was a curriculum that was really going to be devastating to our children. It wasn't working. And we had to do that. But guess what? We were actually, was it 2 years ago? We were walking by that same school with some parents, and we were doing some kind of little thing. It wasn't a school thing, but they're like, you're Jill and Angela? We hear about you. Our kids had graduated. We had made an impression because we heard their curriculum. You guys made a big, we heard, it was like they whispered it, like we can't say it really loud because people might hear us. And Jill and I were like, we moved our kids. It's been 4 years, but we made a difference because we continually went to those boards and asked for those different things. When you go in there, you can see that kind. You can be the change. You can be the ones going through. And if you want to go further into it, and you want to come out of this kind of society, and you really want to say, I want to make a difference, and I want to start, we have a capital club, we have our YAC club, we have our student clubs. Just talk to Jill and Josh. I guarantee you, if you have a fire, we will make sure we ignite it even louder and be able to get you there to talk to wherever you want to.
I have a sense we've used up our time, and I appreciate the opportunity to be here. I'm going to stick around, and I'll just stand here in case somebody has questions about, my kid's IEP or whatever, and I'm glad to chat with anybody about anything. But thank you very much for having us here. It was really nice. I appreciate it.
Thank you, thank you. Okay, he's going to stand here. I'm going to go back there. Is it hot up here about everywhere else?
Cooler out there than it is.
But dude, we want to talk to you and anything you want to do to help. You guys. And what this program is doing is exactly exemplifying what could happen to kids everywhere. I don't see the plates and not just hit the trash can. I think she has more stuff to say, so I'll shut up.
All right, cool. Well, all right. Well, they finished early, and that's cool. We appreciate them being here today. So I hope that you guys do take the time to go and speak to them, speak to Josh and Jill, and just find out more about these issues, how you can be involved, and how you can better educate yourself and your children. AFP is an amazing partner, and we're so happy to work with them because they do provide tons of different resources outside of what we provide that go over a myriad of topics which are very useful. So right now, it's going to take a minute. We're going to grab your name card, so please have those ready. Andrea, we probably should send out the other buckets. We might need to dump them and send them down the rows. Yep. So we have 4 drawings tonight, but I just wanted to go over a couple maintenance things with you guys, just regarding things that are coming up. So the next session, I think my mom already told you, is August 29th, and that's how to prepare for the upcoming school year. That punch bowl, I believe, that session is actually